10 coolest cars ever made. 1. 2002 BMW M3-GTR. The 2002 BMW M3-GTR is synonymous with rarity. As BMW puts it, the GTRs, both race and street copies, were never sold to anyone. Only 3 street copies were built. Not all 3 were ever shown. A street copy was shown in the US only once, and for less than an hour. Beneath the beefy silhouette of the M3 GTR beats a powerful heart, a 4-liter V8 engine delivering more than 400 bhp. This short-stroke, high-speed unit epitomizes the tradition of M-Power and is compact enough to fit into the M3. 2. 1985 Ford RS200. Ford has created some phenomenal motorsport machines, but one that often gets overlooked is the RS200. Aside from the Ford GT, it has to be up there as my favorite Ford car. Built from the ground up as a Group B rally car, the RS200 was a short wheelbase, 4-wheel drive missile which demanded both incredible finesse and bravery to extract its full potential. In order to meet homologation requirements, the Fiat required that 200 road-going models needed to be produced. The road car featured a 1.8-liter Cosworth-tuned 4-cylinder motor that produced around 250 bhp. It continued to embody its rally roots with its characteristically short overhangs, large hood scoop, roof air inlet, and eccentric rear wing. 3. 1997 Porsche 911 GT1 Strassenversion. Created to homologate Porsche's 911 GT1 LeMans contender, the road version, often referred to as the Strassenversion, is one of the most fierce and rare 911s. The GT1 was based on the 993 body shell, but with modified exterior panels and a substantial roll cage that also supported the engine, gearbox and suspension. This helped Porsche avoid necessary crash testing and reinforce ties to the production cars. Apart from a few relatively minor revisions, the Strassenversion is virtually the same as its full-on, race-ready counterpart. These changes include a higher ride height, softer suspension, road-going gear ratios and steel brakes which replace the race car's carbon discs. The engine was only slightly detuned from the race version and a complete interior included sport seats and a full dashboard from the 993 line. 4. 2005 Honda NSX or GT. The Honda NSX or Acura NSX as it is branded in North America is a car synonymous with Japanese supercar legacy. When the NSX was first introduced to the world in 1990, it sent shockwaves throughout the automotive dimension, pioneering an unprecedented amalgamation of road-friendly characteristics and state-of-the-art engineering principles. Like many of the cars on this list, the NSX or GT was born from a need to satisfy race car homologation requirements for production-based cars in the JGTC, in which Honda competed with a race version of the NSX or such rules stated at least 5 production cars for any race car version was required to compete, and Honda decided to meet the bare minimum, producing only 5 examples. 5. 2004 Maserati MC12. At its core, the Maserati MC12, particularly its carbon composite chassis and 65-degree V12 engine is a Ferrari Enzo. Maserati built upon this favorable foundation to create a car that would race under its own company banner, as in Fiat GT race car. Around 25 road-legal Maserati MC12s were produced, in order to meet the homologation requirements needed to participate in the races. The client versions of the car came exclusively in a white and blue livery, harking back to an old trident tradition. In fact, blue and white are the colors of the America Camorati, Kazner Motor Racing Division, Scuderia which raced the famous Maserati Tipo 6061 birdcages in the very early 1960s with Sterling Moss as their lead driver. Six. 1984 Audi Sport Quattro. The Audi Quattro is a prominent figure in automotive history. First introduced in 1981, the Audi Quattro would revolutionize rally racing, and subsequently the trajectory of production car technology. It ushered in an era where all-wheel drive would become mainstream technology for the general public. Eventually, it would be replaced with the Audi Sport Quattro in 1984, after shortcomings of the aforementioned car, such as its relatively large weight and dimensions, became too apparent. Taking advantage of the lenient homologation requirements of the time, Audi engineers went full tilt in creating a successor to the Quattro, doing so after producing the required 200 Sport Quattro cars. Seven. 1998 Panas Esperante GTR1. The Panas Esperante GTR1 was a race car developed by Panas Auto Development and Renard Motorsport for GT endurance racing in the 1997 season. Although it was the namesake of the Panas Esperante Roadster, the GTR1 bore no relation to the Esperante in any significant way, only sharing some minor styling cues. Almost a race car in street-legal trim, the GTR1 exceeds the level of performance of many track-only vehicles. Relentless power comes from an aluminum block V8 engine pushing over 600 horsepower. The GTR1 returned the front-engine race car to the racing circuit at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The game-changing design places the engine between the front axle and the driver, proving that front mid-engine construction is the next generation of the supercar. 8. 1987 Porsche 959. The Porsche 959 remains one of the most interesting supercars ever built. In years past, they were an extra rare sight in the US, as only about 50 or so of the 329, or 337, depending on who you ask, models built made it here to the US. Its iconic design cues, especially from the B-pillar to the rear bumper, have made it one of the most desirable collector cars on the planet. Perfect traction was Porsche's goal when they designed the 959. The proprietary PSK four-wheel drive system was the technological highlight of the 959. PSK could vary the ratio of torque to the front and rear wheels, in the process becoming Porsche's inaugural torque vectoring technology on a production-level car, and essentially, a forefather of the modern all-wheel drive system. Nine. 1989 Ferrari F40, F40 LM. When it made its debut in 1987, the Ferrari F40 was the fastest, most powerful, and most expensive production car to come by the renowned Italian marque. The car, and by association, its designers, made no apologies for it being a solely purposed performance machine. However, the initial sampling of the F40's performance capabilities subsequently sent demand soaring for Ferrari to release a factory race-spec version of the car. Thankfully, Ferrari didn't take long to mull over the idea, and the prancing horse would delegate Micheletto Automobili, Italian race car builder and longtime business partner, who they collaborated with for the 512 BB-LM and 308 GTB, to the task of bringing the idea of such an F40 to life. Preface with how few cars there are in the world that are as era-defining as the McLaren M6 GT. Such was its impact, in fact, that the M6 GT is considered the spiritual forefather of the McLaren F1. Produced over 2 decades later, which has come to define, and ultimately establish the McLaren brand commercially on a global basis. Road legal, but based essentially on a prototype race car, the M6 GT had a cramped interior and no real semblance of usability or practicality. But more importantly, it did come with a Bart's-tuned Chevrolet engine and had an estimated top speed of 165 miles per hour, amongst a host of other outstanding features.